Welcome to Too Much Information. Look who we have here. We have the brothers in arms, the family podcast. So appreciative, man. Thank you for doing this.
No problem.
Not to worry.
Yes. All right. What I'd really like to just say is that when I first started the platform, I kind of done a little bit of research. I started to look around. You type in the hashtag UK podcast, and you look around, and you just find yourself finding different platforms, right? And your platform was one that I saw a couple of people that I knew followed, but it was one that I definitely was aware of, that it looked really professional. You were very consistent, and I think the main thing really was that you look so professional. Great pictures, great photographs, and the videos that you put up was just always kind of interesting concepts, stuff that I was always impressed by what you were pushing forward. All right, so and you always supported. You always like, there was always be a comment here. There was always be something, even on my personal page. It was always be something like you was about. So it was something that I was very interested when I thought, we've kind of had a couple of conversations here and there, or commented on a couple of things, and I thought, let me just throw it out there and see if you do it. And I was so happy that you did, because I'm just very interested to find out, number one, what sort of people you are, and number two, what led you to doing the podcast, and how did you make it look so good? How did you make all your socials look so professional? Like, where does all this ability come from? So yeah, that's kind of my thought process.
Okay.
So why? And I'm hoping, and I've got a feeling, to be fair, we're going to delve into more other things, because you're very opinionated. You're not so I feel like we're going to get some good content today. So
nice.
Yeah, all good?
Yeah, all good, man.
All good.
All right. Like all my podcasts, I like to start with family. You're both brothers, so I don't want to assume, but I assume you were raised together. So yeah, however you want to split up the telling of the story.
I got here first, didn't it? So,
bro, I ain't gonna debate. I ain't gonna debate it right now.
So it's very strange, because obviously, yes, me and Don grew up together, but we're very different people. I mean, it's weird because we're different, but we're similar, But I think, so for me, I used to work a lot on reading books and writing things and trying to find out what my thought process is. And Don was more like, and I'll let Don tell his own side of the story, but Don's just like gung-ho in it. I'll jump in, I'll experience this, I'll get the skill from actually doing the work. Whereas I was more like, okay, I'm going to strategize it before I go in. I'm going to have a plan before I go in. Don's like, nah, forget that, man. Don't need no plan. And so that's kind of manifested in our characters. So whereas like I went to university and I had like a tiny group of friends, and of those friends, I don't know hardly anyone anymore from university. Don kind of threw himself into going into university and making friends, and he's still friends with those people to this day. And so I think our personalities kind of reflect who we are as people.
So sorry to cut you, but do you think that came from different experiences growing up, or do you think it was just the innate differences in your approaches? If you was to look back and think, do you think you experienced life differently?
And so I think there's a time in life where the youngest brother follows the older brother, especially if they're close in age. So me and Don are 3 years apart.
Right.
And then it gets to a stage where, in order not to be Sam's little brother, he has to develop his own thing. He has to become his own person. So when we went to the same primary school, and everyone was like, oh, you're Sam's little brother. They didn't even know his name. And so, oh, you know, your brother was the brother that was reading the dictionary at one point and this, that, and the other. And Don was like, yeah, well, okay, now I'm going to craft my own way. I don't really want to do it that way. And so he began to be his own person. So I think part of it is, yes, we were different from birth, but I think some of it also is, you know, a response to trying to carve out your own path and be your own person.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that, Don? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, man, I definitely agree with that. I mean, a lot of the time I was Sam's little brother. I remember going through church, all the rest of it is like, oh yeah, Sam's younger brother. And I don't think I resented it or anything like that. In fact, I quite enjoyed being Sam's brother because he kind of set a good standard. But I noticed that there was very clear differences between me and Sammy. So Sammy loves reading, you know, and I enjoy reading, but I want to get to the point. You know, like if you're gonna just keep giving me background or, you know, superfluous words and all the rest of it, that I'm in the end I'm just gonna be like, okay, but bro, like we need to get to the end of the book. And so I very much became someone who lived life through experience. Very quickly, I was someone who could deal with IKEA flat packs because I used to look at the bolts and I used to be like, all right, this looks like it fits here. The idea of me reading through a manual is only to get the precise specifications so that I can get it perfect. And that's, for me, that's quite easy to do. I don't need it to do the whole task because I believe that people can just end up procrastinating for so long on, oh, this is the way to do it. If I do it this way, you know, but the problem became when, as an expert in any field, you need to do your research. So then what happened later on down the line is I became very reliant on Sammy because I was like, okay, well, you get the detail and I'll get the application. And so I think that's why we work so well as a team, like just as brothers. And going back to like our upbringing, so being so different, you know, Sammy's always enjoyed kind of time by himself, which I'm sure he'll tell you. I don't like, it's not that I don't like being by myself. I can spend a lot of time by myself, you know, but also I believe that experiences happen with other people. So he's kind of pushed me to spend more time on my own and be reflective and think about the things that I want to do and how I want to journey through life and the goals that I want to achieve. And I've kind of taught him that, bro, like you can't stay in your house all day and then expect to have the littlest moments of your life, because we've just kind of constantly gone on this journey, kind of supplementing each other, if that makes sense. And I think that's, I don't know how that came about because we even do, we've got one more brother, we've got a younger brother. And, you know, I suppose throughout life, we've kind of just supplemented each other. So where my little brother is a bit more younger and he's a bit more reckless, we're like, okay, here's where you rein it in because you got to be careful because later on in life, these things can come back to bite you. So we just like, it's weird. We're kind of this like support chain for each other. And I suppose that's just how it's always been. So as being a support chain for Sammy and a support chain for my younger brother, I've had to grow in my own character anyway, because I can't be the same person that they are because number one, it's not true to me. And number two, it's not useful for the chain that we're building, if that makes sense.
Does.
So, yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. Right. Yeah, that was a proper interesting kind of difference and similarity, kind of like Sammy just said. But yeah, that's really interesting, and it's a perspective I've never heard before. Having been somebody that speaks to a lot of my friends that have siblings, and most of my closest friends are oldest siblings. But it's very interesting to just kind of hear how older sibling and a middle sibling that are quite close in age kind of perceive the same experience almost. What I would definitely like to get into though is kind of like almost like the nuts and bolts of your house, right? So, i.e., parents raised both parents together, not together. What was kind of the focus of the house? Was it like, because I've heard both of you mention university and kind of school, and was that a focus in your household? How difficult was it?
Not focus.
Everything, yeah.
Not for
Apart
yeah,
from God.
everything. It was absolutely
literally.
everything. Yeah, apart from God. Yeah,
That's
God
it.
and education. That's
Okay.
it.
Sorry,
So yeah, our parents would
what area were you raised in? South, I assume.
Croydon, like Thornton Heath.
Okay, okay.
So yeah, so we had both parents, mum and dad, but our house is a matriarchy, you know. So mum rules the roost, you know. She's always the one on your back, you know. If you don't study, if you don't think, but in a weird way, it was like, but whenever I was getting admonished by my mum, it would always be a thing where it's like, oh, it's just mum again. But when dad said it, because he don't say too much
Right.
at any time, you're like, raw, I messed up, or raw, I really got to get my act together and do the thing. So it kind of worked like that. And I think maybe subconsciously, they are the reason why I've grown into such a family man, and why I think that family is so important, especially the nuclear family. And so, because just observing them, and they didn't always have like a Disney marriage, you know, like there were trials and tribulations within their relationship. And I won't say too much more about that. That's their story to tell. Yeah. But, you know, you see it and you realize like, raw, these two had times where it was very difficult for both of them, and their commitment to each other and to their children allowed them to stay together. And that had a profound effect on me. So I went through a stage in my life where I was like, I'm never getting married. Like, forget that. But as I grew and I saw their relationship mature as people, I was like, no, you know what? I want that. You know, I want that. Like, I used to come, little things like you come down and like your dad's playing like reggae, or he's playing like what we call hip life in Ghana at the time. Or he's playing Daddy Lumba, and you're just like, yeah, this is Saturday morning, you know. And mom and they had quite traditional roles as well. So my dad went to work; he worked a lot, and my mum, you know, she worked as well, but she still made dinner, like breakfast, lunch, dinner, you know, and made sure she took care of her family like that. And so I respect her very much for doing that, you know. And she never had this chip on her shoulder that's what she had to do to take care of her family. She just was like, yeah, this is what I'm doing for my family because I love them. I got my degree by the skin of my teeth, and then I was like, but I don't even want to do that. So I went and I did a lot of other things. I worked in a cinema. Where else did I work? I worked in a sexual health clinic. I worked in a gym. And then actually all of those things prepared me for what I do now, which is exactly the same. I've got the same job as my mom, but I couldn't have got there. Like, she got there through like kind of uni. She studied science, and that was entry into the job. The way that I've got in was because I had experience working in the NHS, working with nurses and doctors in a clinical profession. And I had knowledge of the human anatomy because you have to do that to get your training qualification to be in the gym. And so that's how I got there. We got there completely different ways and through different philosophies on life. And also, I would add to that, my mom's got a very rigid philosophy for life. So she believes like in very strict, almost conservative rules, whereas I'm more liberal, and not leftist, but more liberal. And so like we had a lot of arguments about politics and stuff like that, and you know, and who I was, and fashioning who I wanted to be. Like in my family, having a big beard like I have, that's a no-no. But I was like, none of you pay my rent, so you're not going to tell me nothing, you know. Me and my wife,
that must have went down brilliantly.
Yeah, well, you know, again, like being from a Ghanaian family, it's like anybody older than you is correct, even if they're an idiot. And I knew very early on that I was never going to tolerate that. You know, I was going to live life based on what I perceived my own intelligence to be. And using that intelligence, I was going to use it to navigate life. And that is exactly what I've done. And so sometimes you get into scraps with your parents. Sometimes, you know, other family members, they drift away from you because they realize like they're not going to be able to get you to live the life that they've predestined for you, you know. So so yeah.
That's fair. That's fair. That's so. In short, you're saying that the lesson that you kind of garnered was that there are other ways to reach your goal other than this very narrow and very narrow and rigid way
Yeah.
that your parents' life experience and just people from that generation generally have, even if it's not the same blueprint that your parents had, but they have a impression of the world, and that's the impression that they through the care that they've got for their children, they want their children to follow.
Yeah, and the world changed so drastically during their lifetime. You know, my mum had to do her dissertation on a typewriter. You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I've never used a typewriter ever. You know, I might have seen one in a museum, you know, but I've never had to use one. And so the technology is different. Like I remember telling my mum a few months ago, somebody won $1 million for playing video games. She almost lost their shit, man. You know, and yeah, so it's us navigating it. We know that there is so much potential to do the things that you want to do. I remember telling my auntie, like, yeah, we got a podcast. Was podcast. It's like the radio, but it's not the radio. Why don't you just go on the radio? You know, so it's they don't know. So, you know, yeah, if you live your life by their standard, you're gonna be like 40 years behind.
Just to speak to you, because like I say, most of my friends are older siblings. Yeah. So, and I was raised the only child. So I feel like there is this, I want to say, affinity with myself and being an older sibling, you know, almost that chip on your shoulder that, you know, the younger siblings get it better than you got it. And, you know, like that whole dynamic. So I'm interested to speak to you as, even though you're not the youngest, you're younger than your older brother. So I'm just interested to kind of touch on how you view the dynamic between yourself and your older brother, and maybe if you're right in making it that personal, then fair enough. But even if you just say in general,
I mean,
yeah,
cool. I mean, me and Sammy is an interesting one, and me and my younger brother is an even more interesting one anyway, because I went from being the youngest child to being the middle child. So there was a time that I have to understand that I got a lot more than Sammy. You know, me and Sammy were talking about it the other day. You know, when pioneers come into the game in terms of music, tennis, like whatever you want to say, like they never get the proper accolades that they deserve. Everybody else after them is gonna make a shitload more money than they ever made, because times change. Like they would have, I mean, apart from people like Pablo Escobar, who kind of exploited the fact that technology and things weren't as advanced as they should be. And then as a result of his case, stuff started to advance, because they're like, well, if we're going to catch any drug dealers, we're going to have to, you know,
that's an interesting
we're going to have to develop. So in the younger years, I actually didn't like Sammy. Me and Sammy never got on. You know, I thought he was a show off. And I felt like he always wanted to portray that he was the older brother. But what we don't realize is that an older brother doesn't know how to be an older brother. An older brother is just an older brother. You know what I'm saying? Like, just like I don't know how to be a human being, I'm going through life, you know, picking up the skills of being a human being. So me and Sammy's relationship when we first started was turbulent. I got on with him sometimes. Sometimes I'd look up to stuff that he did. Sometimes I wouldn't. And we got in a lot of fights, you know, verbally, sometimes physically, but not ever to the point where it became like a UFC match, you know, like generally it was like, Sam's talking nonsense and pushes me. So I push him back and then he hits his head. Then I run downstairs to my mum in it because, you know, I know that I'm going to get that protection, because Sam's always been in terms of structure, a lot bigger than I am. So it doesn't matter if you get the lucky puncher. If Sam's about to hit you with a 1-2, you know, the 2-piece combo, you know, yeah, with the soda, it's game over for me, you know. So I had to move smarter, you know. Sometimes you just get your little swing and then do the dash. But as we got older, we kind of was like, well, what is there to prove? And I remember my mum kind of saying, but you lot are family, you know. If you and Sammy fall out, then that's it, you know. But he kind of is the only person as a family member who has some sort of obligation towards you as a family member, you know. Nobody else in this world is obliged to give you anything, you know. And technically not even your brother is, but if anybody is going to be obliged, it's going to be your family. And so, you know, very quickly we started to kind of just be like, bro, like, it's our job to ensure, number one, the family name, number two, our legacy as a family, you know, and number three, like, we now have a younger brother, because I'm 10 years older than my younger brother.
Right.
Sammy's 13 years older than my younger brother. So it's like, well, you know, this little beanhead is going to try and do everything that I did, even worse, you know. And it's our job as brothers, because mum and dad will get old, you know, to make sure that he kind of grows up in the right path and is able to then pass on to his children. Because the way that it was always explained to me is that, you know, if you don't uplift your brothers, they become a burden, because you can't turn them away. Like, generally, if you have that kind of heart, it's harder to turn your brothers away. So you end up taking them in. Now, let's say that I became a drug addict, you know. Now I'm going to be knocking on Sammy's door like, oh, bro, you know, can you just give me some money? Or can you give me a place to stay? Like, all you had to do was support your brother growing up.
That's interesting. To me, that's a very profound example that you gave there. Don't mean to interrupt. Keep staying on your train of thought.
And so it was always like with my parents, you know, think about the long run. Like, don't think about now, like right here. Think about what it is that you're kind of gonna achieve. So I think me and Sammy made a conscious effort. And to be honest, when Sammy went away to uni, that was when I kind of stopped being Sammy's brother, like Sammy's younger brother. So there was a lot of evaluation that I had to do within myself, you know. For example, I remember certain days I used to wake up and be like, yo, Sam. Oh yeah, no, he's at uni, you know, because we also shared a room.
Okay.
We had a bunk bed. So I had the top bunk and he had the bottom bunk, which was terrible for if you're trying to draw girls. But, you know, it's something that we had to live with. And I suppose all of these kind of battles of life as you grow up were things that me and Sammy had to kind of deal with. So he'd be like, all right, bro, I need you out the room. I'd be like, bro, you're a dickhead. He'll be like, fam, like, no, got to do what we got to do.
Yeah,
and you know, and you don't understand it growing up until you need him to bust you, because you got a thing coming around. Now you're like, all right, Sammy, I'll beg you stay out the, you know. But these are things that, you know, you learn as life, you know, life goes on. Because Sammy kind of paved that way. Like, I saw Sammy go to university, so I was like, yeah, bro, like, I need to go to university. Whereas if I had saw Sammy on a different path, maybe I would have thought to myself, you see uni? Yeah, no, that's not for me. My family don't really do that anyway. And so my relationship, like, with Sammy has always been a growing relationship, you know. Even now to this day, I remember the first time Sammy came home with his daughter and I was like, raw. You know, like, I'm the younger brother and I was like, little Sammy, you know. You know, I was thinking, right, like, Sammy, who used to, like, you know, we used to play wrestling, used to try RKO me and power drive me into the floor. Like, one time we were playing, I can't remember what he did, but he done, I think it was a pedigree, and I bust my lip.
It was the worm.
My nose was, the worm. And, you know, my nose was all running, like, it was bloody, and I had to go downstairs. My mom took me to the hospital. I'm like, this Sammy is now responsible for another human life. Like, look how much Sammy has changed. You know what I'm saying? So I suppose, as I said, it's always been a growth process. I love learning through experience, as we said in the beginning. So I'm very much someone who's like, this is a person who's credible. and kind of worthy of a certain level of respect. You know, he graduated from uni, he got married, he's got a child, he looks after a household. We know that it's hard sometimes, you know, like to look after a household. I only appreciated that people actually have running taps that actually work and not a leaky tap when I got my own property, you know, and stuff started to break and you're like, you see, I should get this year, but the new Xbox game is out. So let me cop this, then I'll fix the tap because it's not that deep. And then your friends are around, all you're hearing is drip, drip. And you're like, bro, I should have fixed the tap, you know. And so I have a real appreciation for the life that he's lived and the person that he's become, because it shaped me to be who I am, and it's given me, and even if it didn't, you know, I would still appreciate the life lessons, because the reason why I'm able to do stuff without reading is because I perceive, you know, I perceive and I visualize what other people have done, and I'm like, okay, when he did this, this is what happened, you know. So for example, I'm not married, and I'm not actually seeing someone at this moment in time, but I remember there was a time where Sam just got into his brain that, you know, I'm ready to have a relationship, I'm ready to get to the next stage of life. And it takes an incredible amount of willpower for someone to be able to do that, you know, because even I find myself not at that stage yet. I'm kind of like, you know, life is kind of fun, you know, like I'll be having pure fun, just chilling, you know, and I'm like, but do you want to be 65 with no partner, no nothing, and it's just you in your yard? All right. So very soon you're gonna have to smarten up and do what Sammy did. But how can I say do what Sammy did if Sammy never did it? So, you know, yeah. So our relationship's just growing, and you know, that's how the bonds just become better. You know.
Yeah, that sounds very very interesting, and I definitely appreciate it. But Sammy, what are you saying? What are you saying? Are you saying, as the big brother, are you the big brother that had a chip to get over on the shoulder? Did you have to get over that chip of seeing maybe the younger brother not have the pressure that you had, or did he have the same pressure? Because there's not that much difference. I'm just kind of going back. I think, to be fair, one of my best friends, I think there's the same difference in age between him and his younger brother. I think 3 years is about the same age. And I'm just interested, because it's not something that we've necessarily spoke about, but I definitely kind of being maybe a bit like your little brother. I'm very perceptive. So even though I enjoy reading, I'm somebody who studies people, and especially over long periods of time, I come up with my own conclusions about what's going on in people's minds. So is that something that is accurate? Would you say that it's something that you think about, or you thought about maybe when you was younger, that, you know, how comes he's not getting beats for that, or how comes he's not having to do this, or, you know, that kind of.
Yeah. Not really, you know. Well, apparently when I was younger, when he turned up, I was like, oh yeah, baby brother. And then I was like, yeah, I'm bored now. Can we take him back to the hospital? But outside of that, not really. I mean, there was a time where he was progressing in his profession far quicker than I was. So Don's more ambitious than I am in that sense. But I didn't feel envious. Like, I was very congratulatory. And I think part of it is you have to understand where me and Don are as brothers. And we've been through the whole beef thing, and we've been through the whole watching, like, because I thought that sometimes Don can be disingenuous in the sense that he portrays himself one way to one group of people and then one way to another group of people. And then you sit with your friends and you realize, oh shit, everybody does that. And so, you know, everybody's got parts of themselves that they reveal. Like, I'm not the same person with the man them that I am with my wife. I'm a different person. You know, so it just takes time and knowledge to know those type of things. But going back to the point where Don was progressing in his career, it made me feel a bit like, yo, you're the older brother. Aren't you supposed to be the one that's holding a management title and stuff like that? But I'm very about self-accountability. And so if Don did that, that's Don's win. You know what I mean? And if I want to win, I have to initiate my own win. That's, do you feel what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so, no, actually, I'm very proud of Don, because there was a time where he was leaning towards maybe doing the road stuff. Like, he was never really interested in girls until much later on in his life. Like, he was on war things. Like, he couldn't wait. Like, he had this real weird shoes or barge him. He couldn't wait. He had an itch, you know. He's like ready to throw hands real quickly. And so I remember even some of my friends who were aggressive guys in of themselves were like, yo, bro, like, you need to chill, you know. Like, Sam, you need to tell your little brother to chill. And so seeing him go from that to somebody who's now more rational, you know, and somebody who's very perceptive and can pick apart situations and know where he wants to align himself in that situation. And it's marvelous to see as a big brother, you know. So no, I don't think I had that. I don't think I had that envy. And, you know, for me, I always say it's very strange when I see brothers who like properly beef each other, you know. I've known friends who like, raw, hey, how did you spend Christmas? Like, well, me and my brother were fighting and we got locked up. So, like, raw, like that'll never happen to, like, you know what I'm saying? So it's just a bit mad. Because like, I got love for all my brothers. And sometimes even when there's more confrontation between Don and Simon, my youngest brother, because they're so similar, you know. And I think the thing that saved us from the whole beef thing is I'm very laid back. Like, I'm very laid back. And because I read a lot, I analyze situations. And so I take a lot of the steam out of stuff. I don't like confrontation either, you know. So in that case, I think that's what's been the reason why me and Don, you know, we uplift each other, you know. Like we realized it early on that we complement each other. So, you know how you were saying with you came across our Instagram page and stuff like that, and you saw, well, Don does the photography, I manage the social media, and I kind of do the kind of book stuff, like, oh, who's coming on the show? Oh, Don, yeah, this person's coming in on the 24th, he's coming at 2:30, and then I know that if I send the clips to Don that we've recorded, he's gonna do the photography, editing, he's gonna do so, and we just work like, this is what the family is. Like, I have something of individual worth that I've worked on perfecting, I give it to you, and then you give me that, and then together we're a unit. That's where the no Cain and Abel hashtag came from. You know, so if you both contribute something, like, the tribe gets better, and that's the whole mantra.
And I think even with my younger brother as well, like, me and my younger brother, we used to beef so much, and we still do to this day. And Sammy's kind of like the mediator between myself and my younger brother, because, I mean, going back to what Sammy was saying about kind of my younger life, I was a hothead. Like, you can't tell me nothing. Like, you say something, if you want to test, we can throw hands, because I was also very skinny, as I was saying. Like, I was quite a lean brother, like I still am now. And I was like, all right, you know, some people are gonna try and check you, you know, they're gonna try and make sure that you're about what you're about. And so I found myself, like, very early just swinging hands, like, to the point where I got myself in so much trouble. There were so many situations that could have been solved like a different way, in it, but like, because of the way that I am, I just solved it in my way, you know. And growing up in Fulton Heath, there was a lot of that, you know. Like, people had to, you know, you had to show yourself. I remember someone saying to me, "Oh, Don, like, have you ever been robbed?" I was like, "Me, like, nah." And it wasn't even a cocky thing. And they were like, "Yeah, you see the way that you walk and that screw face that you have." They're like, "Yeah, no one's approaching you." And I didn't even know I had developed that. I was just used to hanging out with a group of friends who walked and looked like that, you know. And so, yeah, I mean, generally, like, throughout life, like, I had a lot to learn, to get myself to a place, you know. And I had loads of amazing mentors as well. So like I grew up in the church, but make no mistake, I still spin your head. And in fact, it was even worse when I started out in the church because, you know, to get a little bit personal, I was doing dumb stuff like stealing money from the collection and stuff like that, just because my motive was like any means possible, you know. I remember getting in fights with people over dumb stuff, like someone barged me in basketball. I'd be like, bro, like, don't you know this is non-contact, fam? I'll mess you up, you know. And so it was just, I was just like that. But after a while, kind of watching my brother and watching my family, I was like, all right, how long are you gonna do this? You know, with the from school little red slips coming home to say your child has been bad, because they used to do like green slips and red slips, like, you know, when I was growing up. So you get the red slip if you're bad, you get the green slip if you're good. You know, I remember giving someone a black eye in the playground because he touched one of my friends. It was nothing to do with me. It wasn't even my business, you know. Like, now that I reflect on it, I'm like, this is crazy. Like, he went up, said something to my boy, and my boy told me. I didn't even hesitate. I just swung for the guy. I ended up in detention for like at least a month and a half. Like, I had to go and eat my lunch in the school office. And, you know, it wasn't until there was one time I was a youth leader in my church. And I'd kind of been going in any way that I wanted to go on, you know, like, and I got told a couple of times, like, you can't do this, you're a youth leader, innit? And I was just like, yeah, I hear you. And then I just go back to doing whatever I was doing. And then there was this situation where there was a girl, like, who was one of my close friends at the time, and I walked her and her friend to the bus stop, came back, and there was a group of guys who wanted to talk to her. And, you know, they basically said, and interestingly, Sammy wasn't actually around, but Sammy stopped this from getting so heated. So, like, even in this situation, you can see, like, how the family unit works. So basically what happened is that I came back and there was a group of guys and they said they wanted to talk to her. And I was like, all right, listen, like, there's like 7 of you, man. This is one petite little Latin girl. So, you know, when she says it's kind of over, it's kind of over. But I'm going to just stand here as a youth leader until then, cause she's still under my protection. So they started talking to her, you know, and then she kind of got intimidated and she said, you know, she answered a couple of the questions like, right, I'm going to go in. Now, just based on kind of the environment that I've grown up in, these guys, you know, to me, they were like, yo. So I was like, yo, what's good? Because I was never one to back down anyway. So I was like, yo, what's good? And they were like, hey, bro, come here. And I was like, okay. So I walked up to them and they were like, you know, oh, what's your name? And I was like, Don. And they're like, where are you from? I was like, at this time I was standing in like West Norwood, didn't it? And I was like, Fulton Heath. And then somebody was like, right, you shouldn't have said that. I was like, sorry, what? And then they looked at me like I was giving them attitude. He's like, right, you shouldn't have said that. I was like, well, why wouldn't I say that? You asked me where I come from, like where I live. I live in Fulton Heath. And then he was like, yeah, like his cousin or something got beat up by some Fulton Heath youths. I was like, well, was one of them me? And then they were like, no, I don't think so. What's the problem, my brother? He's like, you see that chain that you're wearing? And I was like, yeah. She's like, why is it so thin? I was like, because it was a gift. Someone gave it to me. I ain't never gonna give something back and be like, the chain's too thin, brother, take it back. And he was like, oh, okay. So then the guy who they were like, oh, you know, you shouldn't have said you're from Fulton Heath. He ran up and headbutted me. And I was like, and he was actually quite strong. Like, I can't lie. Like, he was, that kind of dazed me. I was thinking, way, like, so I literally reclined my hand back. I was about to spin his face off. And then I felt someone touch my arm. And I was like, what? And you know, like when you still try to swing your arm, but it kind of jerks. So I was like, what the hell is going on? So I turned around and it's my youth leader. And she was like, if you touch this boy, she had hooked me up with a job. And she's like, if you touch this boy, I can't let you work with children. You're a risk. And I was like, sorry, what? She was like, yeah, that job that I got you, that's a paid job. I was a play worker. She's like, I can't, that's going down the drain. And I was like, nah, what? So anyway, I went inside, like, I even smashed the church window. Like, I was vexed, like vexed. So I came in, nobody could talk to me. I was crying, everything.
Close face.
Yeah. So
bringing back memories, isn't
it? And then what happened is I called up like a lot of my brother's friends, and I was like, "Yo, like this guy put hands on me, and they're like, "Raw, for Sammy, we're down to ride. Let me know where you're at. I'm ready to go." But before that even happened, they rang Sammy. Sammy rang me, and he was like, "Bro," I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Did you call so and so?" And I was like, "Yeah, bro." And he was like, "Yeah, don't do that." I was like, "Fam, you don't understand, G. The guy headbutted me and then tried to punch me in my face. Like, you know, my youth leader girl stopped it. Like, I'm not gonna let myself be taken for some idiot." And he was like, "Bro, the people that you're calling are serious people. Do you really want this feud? Like, over something so stupid?" And I was like, "No, you don't understand." And he was like, "Bro, take a second, chill out. I'm gonna ring you back. You know, we're gonna sort this out." So he rang me back and he was like, "You were a little bit calmer now." And I was like, "Yeah, I still want to punch up the youth though." And he's like, No, can't do that." He was like, "Listen, the moment's gone. You never banged the youth, and it's good that you didn't, because you would have lost your job. The situation's done. In any case, do you know the guy's name? How you gonna find him? You know, this is stupid." You know? And I didn't get it that day, but a couple days later, I was like, "Yeah, you know what? I think Sammy just saved my life." Because I was ready to ride on that guy. And the thing is, the people that we were affiliated with from the area and the people that we talked to, and especially at that time, they wouldn't let the situation go. This would have been area beef, you know, and it just wasn't worth it. Like, I look at myself now in a management position. How can I put myself in a management position if, you know, you might find me on some news story that I was poking up someone or someone poked up me? You know?
Yeah.
And so very much like,
happen,
yeah, and it's so easy to happen. And I think, you know, when I look back on life lessons like that, I'm like, all right, how can I be for my brother? You know, like, it doesn't make any sense. You know? So yeah.
High praise for you, big bro.
Yeah, man, I'm just sitting here cracking a smile, you know.
Yeah. happy that the lesson penetrated.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the difference in character, you know. And so, yeah, I'm glad that he learned the lesson. And I mean, like I say, look at him now. But we would not have the family if he was banged up or whatever. So. Yeah.